oh my gosh, this foundation is amazing. Now, we have a visitor. Coconut, what are you doing? Coconut, what are you doing? Okay, well, here's my cat. What's up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. So it is Friday, and for today's video I will be talking about the best foundations for oily skin. So if you have oily skin and you have been on the foundation struggle for a long time, I'm going to give you the lowdown from my experience with all the foundations that I have tried, what I think the best are for oily skin. Now, I would like to say a couple of disclaimers, and one is that I don't have oily skin, so I know how they've worn on me. However, I am a working makeup artist, so I have used these foundations on oily skin and seen how they've worn on oily skin, and these are the ones that have worked the best for me, that I've heard the best from the people who have worn them. Second or third, I don't know. I do work at Sephora, so all of these foundations are from Sephora, and that is just because, like I said in my foundations for dry skin video, which I will link right here if you're interested in that video, I said the same thing in that video. Everything that I have experience with is pretty much from Sephora. Now, I did grow up using Mary Kay products, and I basically went from using Mary Kay to using a few drugstore products, but I never got really into drugstore products, so I basically went from using Mary Kay straight into using high-end products because I started working in the industry, and that's just what I started gaining my experience with. With all of that said, there will be no drugstore foundations in this video, and that is just because I simply don't have the experience with them, and I don't feel comfortable recommending them to you if I haven't actually tried them or played with them at all, whether on other people or on myself. That's it for the disclaimers, so let's get into what I think the best foundations for oily skin are. What? Let's get into it. So I do own about half of these foundations, and the other half I have just used at work. So the reason I don't own half of these foundations is because I don't have oily skin, and so I'm not going to go out of my way to get these foundations because they're probably not going to work so well for me. However, for the ones that I do own, they were given for me because whenever you work for a cosmetic company, they give you a lot of products so that you can try them out yourself, so that you can see how it works for you, and so that you know how it works in general, so that you can better recommend it to other people. So that is why I own a lot of these products, or half of them, not a lot. But then the other half I don't own because I'm not going to go out of my way for them. Unless they give them to me, then I'll use them and I'll try them on myself or whatever. But let's start off with the first one, and this first one I do not own, and I'm holding a pen and I'm like, the first one I do not own, but I will leave a little picture of it right here. This is the Hourglass Immaculate Foundation. Now this foundation is really great because, what kind of bark does it have in it? I'm gonna get my laptop because there are certain ingredients in a lot of these foundations that are key ingredients as to why they work well for oily skin. So I'm just gonna pull them up on the Sephora website. I've been told this before, but we get taught so much that it's hard to remember everything all the time, like remember every little ingredient. So let me just pull this up. Could have sworn this had some kind of bark in it. It actually says it has a form of clay, which it has cashmere kaolinite clay. If you're looking for certain ingredients for oily skin whenever you're shopping for a foundation, clay typically is a good ingredient because the way that it dries down, it'll dry down matte, but then as those oils come up throughout the day, it really helps to absorb the oil so that things don't like get out of hand and you get too shiny or things start to separate too much or whatever it may be. Clay is typically a really good ingredient. It is a liquid to powder formula, so it's not as thin as, like, say, the Lancome Tint Idole for foundation. It's not as thin of a consistency as this one. Not that this one is super thin or anything like that, but it's still very lightweight and it'll go on, and you want to make sure, I would recommend applying it with a brush. I would recommend applying most of these foundations with a brush just because of the way that they dry down. Like, they'll dry down pretty quickly and they'll set and they'll kind of adhere to the skin, and you don't want to be using a sponge and like pouncing it because then you'll be pulling that product back up as it's trying to set, and you can create a weird texture that way. Oh, another key note that I would like to say is that if you have have oily skin, you can still have dehydrated skin. So you can have oily and dehydrated skin at the same time because your skin needs oil and water. So if your skin is oily but it's also dehydrated, please make sure that you're using an appropriate moisturizer to bring that water back into the skin and that you're exfoliating regularly, because those are what's going to help the most. Because anything that's super matte and that controls oil really well, you need to make sure that the texture of your skin is as smooth as possible, because they will tend to grab to every little bit of texture that they can. But if your skin is well moisturized and exfoliated beforehand, you should be totally fine, which you should be doing anyways, regardless of whether you wear foundation or not. You should be exfoliating and moisturizing your skin. Just a little tip to help these foundations work better for you. Oh, and the Hourglass Immaculate Foundation retails for $56 at Sephora. Another thing that I wanted to mention about the Hourglass one, that one is really great because of the ingredients actually helps to treat oily skin, so it actually can help with your skin's oil production over time to kind of help balance that a little bit. Next on the list is the Lancome Teint Idole foundation. Now this one I love. The reason I love this one, and I actually do own it and I've worn it myself, the reason I love this one is because it is super long wearing, it does not move around, but at the same time it's not super drying. Like, it still has a really nice like creamy texture, but it feels like it just controls everything throughout the day rather than being like super matte right off the get-go. It still kind of has that natural finish. I highly recommend this one, especially if you're somebody who likes a natural finish but you want to control the oil. And this one retails for $47. And they have a really good shade range. I'm pretty sure that Lancome has the darkest. No, now that we have Fenty, no, that may not be true. But for a long time, Lancome had the darkest shade in our entire store. But now that we have Fenty, that may be different. I haven't compared them, but yeah, this one, super awesome. Oh, and that one has an SPF of 15 as well. I'm not sure about the Hourglass. I don't think Hourglass has SPF in it. It does not. On to the next one. This is the Makeup Forever Matte Velvet Foundation, and I just uploaded a wear test on this one today, so this week, well, the day that I'm filming it, so it will have been the Wednesday prior, but I will link it right here and stop rambling about it. So if you want to see how that one wore on myself, then go ahead and click over there. I will also link it down in the description box. This one retails for $41, so it's definitely on the lower side. Makeup Forever Matte Velvet. Not exactly sure what the key ingredient in this one is. All I know is that it has a really nice texture. It's definitely matte. Like, it's not gonna be a matte natural or a matte satin finish. It is definitely fully matte. So whether you want to pair that with a mattifying primer or not is kind of up to you. I would kind of recommend not pairing it with a mattifying primer because it might just kind of suck the life out of you a little bit, but it really depends on you and how oily you actually are getting. But with this one, I would say the texture is super nice. Definitely one of the most long wearing foundations I personally ever worn. I just really feel like it stayed together really well. I got like virtually no shine at the end of the day. Now today I did not set my face with powder at all because I'm trying some new techniques and stuff like that, which maybe I'll update you guys on that and like this complexion routine here. With this guy, like, you definitely do not need powder with this one. Of course, again, everything is subjective. If you are super oily, you may want to put powder on before you apply this foundation, or any of these foundations. You may want to put powder on after, or before and after, you know? Always customize it to you, but these are just, of course, the foundations that work. I feel like I'm getting a little bit all over the place. Anyways, this guy, definitely one of the most long wearing foundations that I've worn. Really good. Like, I had virtually no shine at the end of the day, and that's a big thing for me because even though I don't have oily skin, I do get a little bit of like a healthy glow at the end of the day. I still have oil production. I have pores. They produce oil. That's natural, but I am by no means oily. But even with this guy, I had like no shine at the end of the day, and I was super impressed with that. So that's a super good one. The next one, Fenty. This one is probably, if you have oily skin, honestly, this one is probably going to be your holy grail. I feel like all of these, depending on the person and how much oil you're producing and stuff like that, just your skin type in general and what your skin concerns are as a whole, will depend on which foundation you want to go with. So I would highly recommend kind of grabbing samples and stuff like that to see what you like. However, I have found this one to be a super holy grail for super long wearing foundation. This one is one of the most long wearing foundations I've ever worn. Like these two, but especially this one. Like this one is like top notch. It is the Fenty Pro Filter Foundation. If you don't know already, if you've been hiding under a rock because you haven't heard of Fenty, I don't know who hasn't. I mean, it's Rihanna, come on. This one retails for only $34. Now, I will say with this one, we like to call it a high maintenance foundation because it definitely will grab to texture if your skin is not properly moisturized and exfoliated beforehand. This one will require a little bit more prep work. Their mattifying primer is really nice because it does kind of hydrate as well as help to control the oil. So that one will kind of help to smooth out a little bit of texture before applying this. However, I would still highly recommend doing some good exfoliation regularly, but especially before you apply this foundation. Maybe a moisturizer that's a little bit heavier than you would normally use because this foundation is just going to go on so much better. Now, if you have truly oily skin, you probably won't need a heavier moisturizer. Every time I use this foundation on somebody who is truly oily, it goes on freaking beautifully because they already have all that moisture on their skin, and so whenever I apply it, it's just like smooth, and it literally, like Pro Filter, like it literally kind of has this soft effect. It's absolutely beautiful. So I highly recommend this one for oily skin. You can grab their mattifying primer as well, and then she also has a blotting powder, which is super nice. It is completely invisible, so if you have the darkest of dark or the lightest of light skin, it is completely invisible. I've tried it on everyone. Trust me, I highly recommend that. Alright, the next one on my list is the Cover FX Power Play Foundation. Now this foundation is super cool and I'm so excited about it. I don't own it, but of course I will leave a picture right here so that you guys know what it looks like. This one retails for $44. It was so funny whenever it first launched because we'll have brands come and visit us at the store and they'll kind of like train us on the products and talk to us about it, let us ask questions and stuff like that. And whenever one of our Cover FX reps came in, she was wearing glasses and she like ripped off her glasses. She goes, "Look at this. My foundation has not moved under my glasses all day. This has never happened before." Like she was so excited about it. It was so funny. I was like, dang, I need that foundation, which I do plan to get this one. I'm kind of holding out for it, hoping that they give it to us, but if not, I'll definitely be purchasing this one because oh my gosh, this foundation is amazing. Now, we have a visitor. Coconut, what are you doing? Coconut, what are you doing? Okay, well, here's my cat. I guess I'll just finish the rest of my video like this. That's fine. Coconut, this is not the appropriate time. Coconut, please. Look at her. She's just getting all comfortable. She's just sitting there. What do you think you're doing? What do you think you're doing? So the Cover FX Power Play Foundation, I forgot where I left off. This one, I would definitely say it would work for normal, like the Cover FX rep, whenever she was talking to us about it, she has dry skin too, and she said that she still wears it and it doesn't dry her skin out, which I did use the foundation on a dry skin person, and I was like, oh wow, that actually sits really nicely. Now, always moisturize your skin beforehand, obviously, but I was still surprised with how long wearing it is and how it like clings to your skin and just like adheres to everything, and how long wearing it is and everything in between. I was like, oh my gosh, I was super impressed. So I highly recommend that one. It's definitely not going to be one of those foundations that like sucks the life out of you and like dries you out, but it is going to be super long wearing, smudge proof, like transfer proof, like everything proof, waterproof. I mean, it's a really, in my opinion, I think it's just a great summer foundation. So highly recommend that one. And then the Tarte Amazonian Clay Foundation. This is also one that I do not own, but I will leave a picture of it right here. Most people know about the Amazonian Clay Foundation already, and if you have oily skin, you probably tried it already. It's been around for a while. However, I do still like to recommend this foundation because, like I said before, clay is a great ingredient for absorbing oil throughout the day. Now, this foundation does not work for everyone. A lot of people find it to be too drying, and I would say if you don't truly have oily skin, you're not gonna like the foundation. Anybody who truly has oily skin will be like, yes, I love that foundation. It definitely will be more matte and can be a little bit drying if you do not have that oil production. So definitely reach for that one. That one retails for $39. All right, so this next foundation is the Becca Evermatte Poreless foundation, I think is what it's called. I'll leave a picture of it right here like always. This foundation I also do not own. However, if you are that oily skin person where you are like, I just need something to dry my skin out because it is a hot oily mess, because I've definitely had those clients where they come in and they're like, give me a foundation that will like strip the crap out of my skin. I'm tired of these oils. Now this is a foundation that is going to be matte. Like, it is going to dry down. It might even feel a little bit tight on your skin because it's like gonna just suck everything up. It has microfine powders in it that help to absorb the oil throughout the day. So that is gonna be like your key ingredient in that foundation as to why you would want to purchase that. And this one does retail for $42. And then the last foundation that I would like to talk about is the Smashbox Studio Skin Foundation. Now this one is actually a hydrating foundation, and I have worn this one myself and I do own it. It is right here. And this one, you can watch my wear test on it. It was one of the first wear tests that I had ever done, so I will link it right here so that you can hop on over there. I'll also link it down in the description box. This one is so long wearing. Like, I was seriously impressed with this foundation, especially with it being hydrating, which quite honestly, I think that the hydration is good, especially if you have oily skin. A lot of times whenever you are oily, I mean, some people are just oily, like that's just their skin type, and then some people get some excess oil production because their skin is actually trying to overcompensate for what it's lacking. And so that little bit of hydration in there can actually help to reduce that oil production. Your skin doesn't feel the need to produce as much oil throughout the day. With the Smashbox Studio Skin Foundation, it will give you a little bit of hydration, but then it dries down and it adheres to the skin. And this is definitely not one that I would apply with the sponge. Definitely apply it with a brush. However, you can apply any of these guys with a sponge. They would be totally fine. The Lancome, the Fenty, and the Makeup Forever. However, this one I would only do a brush just because of the way that it sets down. If you try to pounce over it, it's just gonna pick it up and it will create a very odd texture. So highly recommend applying it with a brush. It says that it is 15-hour wear. Would I say it's 15-hour wear? Not necessarily, but a good 12 hours, you could get a good 12 hours out of it. That is pretty much it. So last thing that I would like to say in this video, because that is it for all the foundations that I recommend, but whenever it comes to you and picking your foundation, are you setting it with powder? All of those things you might need to do depending on how oily you get. Some people will put a mattifying primer on and then they'll put a powder on and then they'll put their foundation on and then put more powder on to kind of layer it up throughout the day. So you can try some of those techniques, which maybe I'll make another video kind of doing techniques for controlling oil with oily skin. Let me know if you would be interested in that. But just kind of think about those things. And then another thing is that you need to maintain it. Sure, you can do setting powders, you can do setting sprays, you can wear long wearing foundations and everything in between. But if you have truly oily skin, it's definitely something that's going to need to be maintained throughout the day. By that, I mean, don't wear your foundation for 9 hours and then go in and try to blot with powder, because then things are just gonna start to get a hot mess. Of course, it depends on how oily you get, but I would carry a blotting powder with you. The Fenty blotting powder is super great because it's compact, it's a pressed powder, and it absorbs oil super well. They also even have blotting sheets. So whether you want blotting sheets, blotting powder, whatever you want to use, blotting throughout the day is really going to be your best friend whenever it comes to oily skin. So definitely grab yourself a blotting powder or blotting papers or something like that and touch up throughout the day. Depending on how oily you get, you might want to touch up every few hours, like 2 to 3 hours, or maybe you can go 8 hours, touch up a little bit, and then go another few hours and then touch up a little bit. But you want to be absorbing that oil throughout the day, because if you let it turn into a hot oily mess, oil is oil, and oil is going to start to break things down if you aren't controlling it and trying to maintain it throughout the day. So I want you to keep all of that in mind whenever you are picking your foundations, but these are definitely the foundations that I have used and that I have had the best success with in terms of controlling oil just on their own. And then of course you want to use those other techniques to help them work even better. I hope that you guys found this video very informative and that it helps you kind of with all of your shopping endeavors, and it helps you pick and choose what you kind of want to try and play with. Definitely go grab some samples from Sephora, try some different things, see what you like, see how it works for your skin type, because everybody has different needs even if you do have the same skin type, and let me know how you like them. I guess that's pretty much it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you are new here, make sure that you hit that subscribe button before you leave and that you turn on your notification bells, because what's the point of subscribing if you don't know when I'm gonna upload? Am I right? Am I right? And then if you are not new here but you aren't subscribed, what are you doing? Hit that subscribe button. You came back for a reason, and the notification bell while you're at it. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you all in Monday's tutorial. Bye! I basically went from using coconut, please.